What's the record that you got for the Indianapolis Colts? Talk to me about where you see their season going, and then give me an offensive MVP to kick off this conversation, this preview here for this team.
So where I'm at with the Colts is the same spot that you are with the Jaguars. I need to see it to believe it. I have them at 7-10, also missing the playoffs at 7-10, and I just the Anthony Richardson thing for me is difficult because obviously he got drafted as high as he did because he's a supreme athlete, maybe the best athlete we've ever seen come out of the position, had an unreal combine that we just may never see again, who knows. He's got the arm strength. He's got the feet. He's got all of that stuff. But the accuracy still bothers me, right? And I think at Florida, he wasn't particularly accurate. It's going to be the biggest thing. And there's a lot of things. I know they're kind of tweaking his mechanics right now to try to work with that and work through the shoulder surgery. Had some ups and downs this preseason as well. And I think the one thing that gives me hope is that Shane Steichen's an elite play caller. To me, I would probably make him, he's probably one of the top 5 play callers in the league right now. RPO heavy system, a very, very modern offense, wants balance, wants to go up tempo. Darn near won the division last year with Gardner Minshew playing every week. I have to see it consistently to believe it with Richardson, and I think there's a good supporting cast. You talk about a good offensive line, players like Quentin Nelson and Bernard Ryman and Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith. I mean, they've got a really, really good offensive line. You've got Jonathan Taylor back there. We know what he can do when he's healthy. And for me, the offensive MVP is actually Michael Pittman Jr. I think the more that they leaned into Pittman as the year went on last year, the better they got. There was a stretch of games where it felt like he was getting 8, 10, 11 catches every single week. And honestly, he was. He had 109 catches last year, fourth in the league, 15 contested catches, which was also 4th in the league, and an 80 receiving grade that was a top 20 mark. Look, Pittman is the guy who makes this go. We're waiting on other guys to emerge, right? Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell. I don't know who's going to emerge as that too. I'm sure they're hoping it's Mitchell with all the size and speed and everything he did at Texas, and they got, honestly, it was a steal in the second round. I think he easily could have been a late first-round pick, as talented as he is. I think he's a better route runner than people give him credit for, but that's besides the point. We know Pittman is the constant. He's going to show up every single week, tough catches, all of that RPO stuff and all the motion and everything in Steichen's offense. It's really based around Pittman and where he wants to line him up and just how he wants to get him going both before and after the catch, right? But I need to see this overall to believe with Richardson. I need to see it in front of me. I need to see the accuracy and the footwork get better. I know he's going to be able to do the bootleg stuff. He's going to run. He's going to be fantasy players' favorite quarterback. And I don't blame them one bit for that, just because of the way strategy and all that goes in fantasy. But I got to see him just find that consistency as a passer, right? I just can't have. He's just been airmailing balls. Even in the preseason, there's some misses in there, man, and some easy ones that NFL quarterbacks don't miss. All the talent in the world, have to see it to believe it. With Richardson, Pittman is my offensive MVP.
Yeah, my offensive MVP is Anthony Richardson for that very reason, because everything in Indianapolis hinges on his ability to raise his floor, like we talked about a couple of minutes ago. He has just absolutely spectacular passes. I mean, even through this preseason, which I did not think that his preseason performance, it's not like it was all bad. So when I say that it was bad, it's not that I'm saying that it was void of any good plays, but I think that Richardson's preseason was bad because that's not what you wanted to see from him. I didn't really care about the spectacular throws this preseason. I already know that he can make those. Show me the footwork is improved. Show me the consistency is improved. Show me that the ball is going exactly where you want it to while you are in structure. The outside of structure stuff, throwing on the run, it feels like those no-look passes, the crossbody passes, the ability to have your feet pointed to the left and you somehow sling it to the right and it gets there on a frozen rope. Those passes are fantastic, but it's the in-between that makes a great NFL quarterback. And the in-between right now is an area of concern for Richardson. You got people in the chat saying this, and I agree with you. As a Florida Gator grad, I watched every single snap that Richardson played while he was at Florida. And that final year that he was there, no doubt about it, the accuracy and the consistency with where he delivered the ball and how he delivered the ball was an issue. Again, that doesn't mean that there weren't fantastic plays, but the play-by-play basis was an issue for him. I was encouraged last year Well, one, because he got drafted in Indianapolis and I love Shane Steichen. But two, like even in those early games before he went out for the season with that shoulder injury, you saw Shane Steichen sort of simplifying the offense a little bit for him. Half field reads, like say like leveled concepts, like a sail concept where it's like, hey, you're just reading this defender. Read this one defender. If he does this, you throw it over top. If he goes deep, you throw it underneath. That's all you need to do. Get him in rhythm. And when he was doing that, I thought the footwork and the mechanics looked better last year. I thought I don't pretend to be a quarterback guru, but I thought they looked worse this year. When I saw him in the preseason, it looked like Florida Anthony Richardson. And that worries me very clearly, if he was doing those things in practice, they would be helping him, correcting him, like repositioning his footwork, all that stuff. So that makes me think that he is able to do those things in practice. But then when the games and the live bullets start flying, he reverts back to kind of like who he was at Florida, which is a worry for me. So at this point in time, as the guy who I think the offense completely hinges on, I think the second half of this season is paramount for Anthony Richardson. One, he's got to make it there. He's got to be healthy. He has to get it to the second half of this season. We need a fully healthy year for him. Two, I think the preseason kind of hinted to me that he might struggle a little bit with those inconsistencies through the first 8 weeks of the year. What is he going to look like in the final 8 games of the year? Maybe this team makes the playoffs as a wild card. I'm not sure. But even if that's not the case, that doesn't really matter to me. Does he show true improvement in the second half of this season? Because if they do, and he does, I could be all in on the Colts when it comes to next year with another offseason of them getting better and adding to this roster. So that's my thoughts on Anthony Richardson as well. I do kind of see it a little bit similar to you with, man, we've got to see it from him. What about defensive MVP? Who do you have as the defensive MVP for this team?
I'm going with their best player, and their defensive line is getting a lot better, especially with young talent. But I'm going with a veteran guy they picked up a couple years ago who's just consistent every year, man, especially in the pass rush game. That's DeForest Buckner. I mean, he's been their best player for a while. 87.1 pass rush grade last year. The only 3 guys ahead of him among interior players: Dexter Lawrence, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones. And you're talking about 2 surefire Hall of Famers and Dexter Lawrence, who maybe is on his way there as well. DeForest Buckner with the interior pass rush, and even in the run game with all the problems that he causes inside, he gives the Colts a chance on that side of the ball. Obviously, they're waiting on younger guys like Kwity Paye and Laiatu Latu and all the other guys around him to really develop into stars as well. But DeForest Buckner is the star of this defense, and to have a 3 technique like that, it's what every defensive coordinator dreams of in a 4-man front. They're like, can I get that 3 technique that just causes havoc all the time in both phases? The Aaron Donald, the Chris Joneses, the Warren Sapps of the world, those guys. DeForest Buckner is one of those guys. He was one of those guys in San Francisco in that loaded crew. The Colts went and got him to be that guy, and he's worth every penny they're paying him. He's still their best player and the biggest problem on their defensive line in their front 7. He's just, at times, he's unblockable still.
I think DeForest is fantastic. So I think that's a really good call out. I think Kwity Paye is also a pretty good call out. He had the most sacks of his NFL career in a single season last year, which is good. The pass rush win percentage was a little bit down for him, which is kind of what I'm getting into here with my MVP. I think if you're really talking about the guy that everything kind of hangs on, you are right, is DeForest Buckner. But I already think that Buckner's going to be a stud because we see it every single year. So I'm not worried about that part. The part of a player whose performance could really mean everything to this team on top of, or should I say around Buckner, is rookie Laiatu Latu, their first-round pass rusher. I have him as their defensive MVP this year, not because I necessarily think he is going to be their best player, but because I truly think that he is their most valuable, because if he can step onto the field, which it looks like he is already, we've seen the practice reps, we've seen some things in the preseason, if that reflects what we saw at UCLA over the last 2 years, this Colts defense, I think, could be a lot better than people are giving it credit for. It's just not getting talked about a lot. Last season, the Colts were second in the league in total sacks. They had 53. They were second in the NFL in total sacks. And yet they were just 10th in pass rush win percentage, and they were only 28th in total pressure. So when they had the ability to bring the quarterback down, they were able to do so at a very high clip. but you want more regular pressure. You want to be able to get after the quarterback on a more regular basis. Nobody in all of college football over the last 2 years was better at that than Laiatu Latu. He was first in the NCAA in total pressures over the last 2 years. He was first in pass rush win percentage. I don't think he was first in sacks, but those are the two numbers that you really want: consistent pressure and a high pass rush win percentage. His presence, if he can continue to do that on the defensive line, that just makes it all the easier for guys like Kwity Paye, guys like DeForest Buckner. You got big, strong dudes like Grover Stewart, right? There's some players who are in reserve as well, like Adetomiwa Adebawore is somebody who comes to mind, right? The linebackers who could be coming free up the middle. It all gets so much easier if more attention than normal for a rookie has to be paid to Laiatu Latu. And that's why I think that the value of what he could bring to this team could make all the difference in the world for their front seven and their defense overall. So I've got him as their defensive MVP. What about a breakout player? Who you got there?
I'm going to stay on defense. I'm going to go to corner, which is a spot where the Colts have struggled in recent years. You talk about they have a consistent player in the slot in Kenny Moore, but they've really, really struggled at outside corner the last few years. And finding a young player who can fill that void, right, and can just give them something, even if it's not a Sauce Gardner or a Derek Stingley or somebody like that, something at outside corner, because the Colts, at that spot have really been rolling around the bottom five of the league the last couple of years. Give me Juju Brents, the second-year man out of Kansas State. I think when he was healthy last year, he showed some solid flashes in coverage. He has to play the whole season, so we do need to see that. But 64.5 coverage grade last year, and a lot of that is weighed down by that last game against Houston where the Texans really went at him. First play of the game, he had Nico Collins one-on-one and got torched on a post. But the rest of the year before that, he was really, really good. Actually, if you take out that last game, he had over a 70 coverage grade in his rookie year, which for a mid-round pick is pretty darn good, right? They need a guy like Brents to step up. And I think the one thing, too, for me, Colts are known as a heavy zone coverage team, but he had the highest man coverage grade on the team among their corners, at least at 75.2. If they can mix it up a little more, maybe they have to lean into that with his skill set. His skill set might just be tilted more towards man coverage right now while he works on field awareness and things like that in zone. But I think Juju Brents is a guy who, needs to step up and certainly can step up for them at outside corner. It's a spot that's hurt them for a long time when they've had to cover the better receivers in the league. Take even that Texans game, the Nico Collins of the world, or when they play the Bills, the Stephon Diggs, or not the Bills anymore, the Texans again. Boy, they just can't cover the Texans, can they? Stephon Diggs of the world, Nico Collins, but just number one receivers on the outside that they've had issues with, right? I'm so used to Diggs being in Buffalo now. We got to get used to the Texans being this loaded. But no, I mean, it's going to be a thing, right? We've talked about the Jags, even just in their division. The Jags and their vertical threats, the Texans and all their threats, and even Tennessee. Look, you still got a team, even though they're in we think they're going to be in last place. Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, that's a real problem to have to cover. And if you're not ready on the outside, you're going to have an issue. The Colts need to get better at corner, and they need a player like Juju Brents to step up.
I'll stick with the secondary with my breakout player. Maybe some people would say that he broke out already, which is fair, but I think that he could have the best year of his career yet. That's Julian Blackmon, their safety. This is somebody who played both corner and safety during his time in college when he was at Utah, and I've got high hopes for Julian Blackmon. Tore his ACL in 2021, was working back from that injury in 2022 when he was on the field. Last year in 2023, best coverage grade of his career at 72.6. The versatility, I think the high football IQ, it feels like he's always in the right place at the right time, and I was watching Kay Adams on the Up and Adams show. She was talking with Shane Steichen when they were at Colts camp, and she asked him, like, hey, who is somebody who not enough people are talking about, who you're excited to see on your own team this season? And very quickly he was like, Julian Blackmon. Like, he's having a phenomenal camp. He's exactly where he needs to be. It feels like at all times he's like they're setting the defense up kind of through him. And I think it could be, again, the best year yet for a player that I know some people, like I said, may have said is broken out already, but I think the best is yet to come for him. So I'm going to go with Blackmon there. What about the team's best rookie?
I'm rolling right back to your defensive MVP. It's Laiatu Latu. I actually think
it's fair.
He's my pick to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think his play style, first of all, let's go back to the college thing. You talked about UCLA. Last year, the best overall grade by a Power 5 defensive player in PFF history, passing up guys like Chase Young and Quinnen Williams and Sauce, anybody, it doesn't matter. Whoever you think of has played the last 10, 11 years in college football, he was better than all of them. I just love the way First of all, his pass rush arsenal is just crazy. It's nuts. The fact that there's so few guys, like you have guys who are comfortable in a stand-up role as an outside linebacker. You have guys who are comfortable in a three-point stance. For him, it doesn't matter. He's gone right to being in a three-point stance now after they really ran more of a 3-4 kind of thing at UCLA and he was standing up. Now he's gone to three-point stance. Doesn't matter. Just made the adjustment. He looks great already. And I just, even in run defense, Trev, it's the way that his eyes are married to his feet. Like it sounds like something. Well, duh, your whole body's connected. Everything should work all at once, right? But like, it's only certain defensive players who their eyes just take their body where it needs to go, if that makes sense. You can see it a little easier with a linebacker, but his awareness off of the edge, when you can always see his helmet's on the right side of the offensive lineman's shoulder pads, telling him where to go. Then his hands rip, then his feet go. Everything's always in sync, and he's so heady, and he's always studying the game. And I know the one concern with him coming out of UCLA was, well, he might not be the athlete like Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or Chop Robinson is, right? He's like a B to B plus athlete. But what he does to make up for it is he studies the game. He studies his pass rush arsenal. He works on that. I remember being at his presser at the combine, and somebody asked him, they're like, well, what are the things you're working on? Have you been working on the 40? Have you been working on the vert or whatever? And he goes, no, I've been working on secondary run defense counters. I've been working on hand moves to shed blocks in run defense. I'm like, he doesn't care about that stuff.
Because he doesn't have it. He doesn't have to work on anything pass rush wise. Like, he's already got it. Right. He's good.
And even then, he still does. He's one of those freaks. Like, I think we've heard TJ Watt talk about this, how it's just this constant level of, even though he's already great, I'm still improving. And this is a guy who's been through so much, right? Darn near medically retired with the neck injury back when he was at Washington, and then went to UCLA and resurrected his career. Like, been through so much, mentally is all the way there. I think he is on his way to greatness. I think he's going to be the best defensive player to come out of this draft. He was clearly the best defensive player in this draft. If you just throw on the tape as opposed to the combine and all that stuff, it wasn't even close. I think he's an elite pass rusher. He's going to be a really good run defender. He's my pick to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, he is mine as well. I echo everything that you say about Latu. Obviously, I talked about him as a defensive MVP for this team. My best rookie, if I can't say Latu, which I would, but I've already talked about him, A.D. Mitchell, my boy A.D. Mitchell, right? Should have been a first-round wide receiver. Plain and simple. He's good enough to it. He's got the tape for it. He had the tape at Georgia. He had the tape at Texas. Should have been a first-round wide receiver. And I think that the Colts got an absolute steal getting him where they did in the middle of the second round there. And I believe that he completes this wide receiver room. You got Michael Pittman Jr., you got A.D. Mitchell, you got Josh Downs. Like, that is a fantastic trio of wide receivers. Is it the best wide receiver trio in the NFL right now? Okay, no, we don't have to say that. But it has the potential to be one of the best, in the years to come. I think that those three players basically allow you to attack defenses however you would want. From the slot with short area quickness and choice routes, from vertical ability when it comes to A.D. Mitchell. You can leave him off the line of scrimmage as a flanker. You have him as a pre-snap motion player. You can hand the ball off to him in motion behind the line of scrimmage. You've got Michael Pittman Jr. who could play as an X, who could be strong on the line of scrimmage as well, be a really good run blocker for you, be a contested catch guy, be a short yardage guy, a red zone guy. Like, you could fill a lot of the needs that you would want to have from a receiving core with those three guys. So I think A.D. Mitchell, his athleticism, his big playability, and his red zone success, I think is something that is really huge to add to this team. So I will go with A.D. Mitchell being a reason why Anthony Richardson could take a big step forward if he indeed does that.